to put us down. They all try to put us down. Yeah, just because we they do the awful cold. We'll fly down before I get old.
My Generation, from a group which, many people think, speaks for its generation. The Who, on stage. We recorded that performance at Charlton Football Ground in South London almost exactly a year ago. The Who's stage shows are, in the rock world and in rock world language, legendary. And this was the first time television cameras had covered the event. It seems it might be the only time. The Who haven't appeared on stage since then, and there are no immediate plans for them to do so. But they haven't been out of the news. The film of Pete Townshend's rock opera Tommy looks as if it might justify the publicity boast of it being the film event of the year. Ken Russell strikes rock. Tommy made the Who rich and it made them famous. But to the faithful Who followers, the Who's live stage performances are the real thing. Tonight, we're going to repeat parts of that Charlton concert directed by Tony Staybaker. But before that, here's an interview I did with Pete Townsend, the leader of the Who. I started by asking him about his parents, who were both musicians.
My father was in a band called the Squadronaires.
The Squadronaires?
Yes.
I used to hear them at Butlin.
At Butlins?
Yeah.
You probably used to see me then, because I was always there, trying to get out of the compound, climbing up the barbed wire, and I was one of the first to escape, actually.
That was in the, when they had those big bands. There would be about a 20-piece band.
Filey and
Air.
Air.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I was there, 2 years old at the time. And beautiful sand dune beach, I remember. One of my earliest memories is on the beach up there.
At Air, yes.
Yeah.
And he played the saxophone, didn't he?
Yeah, he was one of the founder members. They were an Air Force band, and after the war they continued, you know, I think for 3 or 4 years they used to play in uniform, RAF uniforms. There's Something in the Air was their theme tune. And it was really my first sort of taste of show business sort of came from seeing my father on the stage and hearing my mother on record, because my mother started as a singer with the Squadronaires. And seeing my father on stage, he always used to smile, this plastic smile like this. That's show business.
Was it tenor saxophone he played?
No, alto.
Alto.
Cliff Townsend and his singing saxophone.
Did it encourage you to learn musical instruments
Not
early on?
really, no. I just used to stack the bottles up at bottle parties. No, I used to muck about on the mouth organ. And that's about as far as it got, really. And I was very frustrated musically. We didn't have a piano, and we had a terrible old radio and radiogram, you know, and my father went berserk if I touched his instruments, because clarinets and saxophones are very delicate. So I never really had any access to musical instruments until I actually went out and bought one, you know, which was when I was about 12, or my grandmother bought me a guitar for Christmas.
Bought you a guitar for Christmas when you were 12?
Mm.
That was in 1957?
Something like that, yeah.
Why did she buy you a guitar for Christmas?
Because I asked for one.
And all your heroes at that time were singers, pop stars?
I wasn't very interested in sport. And I can't really remember having any specific hobbies at all. I used to like toys up to the age of about 12. I used to like model railways and riding my bike. I was a fanatical bike rider, an explorer and things like that. But until I got the guitar, I was kind of getting dragged along with all the rest of the gang, you know, going to Ackerbilk concerts or you know, going down the park and trying to chat up a couple of local women, and I really didn't fit into all this. The kind of people that I used to hang out with, although they were the same age as me, they were always taller, better dressed, better looking, and I think what they found amusing in me might have either been my sense of humour or the fact that I was the bloke that you hit on the head or something like that. Anyway, they were always superior in some way or another. And I realised that the only way I was ever going to fit into society and have a role was via this guitar. I really did think this. I thought I'll go and I'll shut myself in my room and I'll learn the guitar, and when I come out, they'll want me. And that's exactly what happened. I went, shut myself in the room for 2 years, doing paper rounds to buy strings and things like that. Came out at the end of the 2 years and immediately joined the Who. And that's the way it's been ever since.
But at that time, were your heroes Presley and people, or were you still sticking to the...
I didn't like Elvis Presley much at all. I used to like some of the trad people. I used to like the Shadows and Bill Haley, because he would, you know...
With that sort of
was,
quiff,
yeah, it was awful. And
quiff of integrity, yeah.
I think...
You mean because he was awful, you liked him?
Yeah. No, I remember we were on the Isle of Man, and I had the privilege of seeing the previews every Saturday morning at the local cinema of the films that were going to be run during the week. And my friend and I that were staying with me, we were both about 11, 12 years old, and we went to see Rock Around the Clock. And I remember the chill ran up my spine as I heard them native rhythms. And no, it really was. And I looked round at my father and I said, "What is this music? It's amazing music, you know."
And what did he say?
He said, "Oh, it's not bad. Not bad, is it?" And that was really all, you know.
And when you came out, you walked straight into the Who. I mean, you met the 3 people who are now part of the Who with you.
Well, I've known John Entwistle, who's the bass player in the group, the longest. Yeah. And when I really got the guitar, and I was actually playing banjo badly in a band that John Entwistle played trumpet in. And these were the superiors that I was talking about earlier on, while playing the banjo and just being dragged around by me scruffy scruff of my neck. I was actually studying the guitar and posing in front of the mirror and trying to reduce the size of my nose by osmosis or whatever. And
hypnosis.
yeah. And no,
Roger...
it used to be a very runny nose.
Blotting paper.
Yeah. And when I finally got good enough to join the group that John had then joined, he joined up with Roger Daltrey, who was then a lead guitar player, and I joined the group as a rhythm player.
And Keith Moon?
Much later.
Much later.
Yeah.
Were you aware of the Beatles, and were you aware of the Stones and so on?
I was aware of the Stones because they started in Ealing and Richmond, and I used to go to Richmond and hang about by the river there at weekends, and they used to play there and used to hear talk about them. But this is later on. In fact, one of the first gigs I used to do was at a place called the Ealing Club, a seedy little club near Ealing Broadway Station. And I think that was the first place that Mick Jagger, Keith Richard and Charlie Watts ever played together. And I think that was with Alexis Corner.
Yeah.
And I was there that night, lurking around in the back. I didn't really take much notice. I thought Mick Jagger was horrible. And the next time we encountered the Stones, we were backing them up on this pub circuit. The pub circuit had a couple of ballrooms, St Mary's Ballroom, Putney, and we played with the Stones. And I think we learnt more about rock theatre that night than I've never ever been zapped like that. When you're not ready for somebody's presence on the stage. I mean, Mick Jagger walked in and was a star to me. I mean, I don't get this feeling from Zsa Zsa Gabor or from, you know, Fred Emney. I mean, I get it from people like Mick Jagger when they walk on the stage, or even to a great degree from people that adopt these mannerisms like David Bowie. I mean, I get a great sense of presence from them.
Yeah.
From watching Roger on film, which I've obviously been doing a lot of lately. You know, that its presence is something which is either there or it isn't. I suppose you can assume it, but there's a particular kind of presence which is associated in rock. And in those days, one didn't see it very often, and I saw Mick Jagger on the stage, and God, I mean, it did me in.
After being a backup group to all these other groups, you became a head-on group when you made your first record, which was In the Face, wasn't it?
I'm the Face.
I'm the Face, I'm sorry, I'm the Face. And then you appeared on television on Ready, Steady, Go, and you started off as a important group in the public eye. In an account of 1 week, almost exactly 4 years ago, So,
the guitar for the next couple of months, because I didn't smash a guitar every night. I used to bounce it about and maybe repair it, stick it back together again, and, you know, I mean, they were hard times. But if there was one, you know, these are Rickenbacker 12 strings, which I used to use, which cost, I think, £406 each. And I should have used something taxier. And it became a habit.
Ukulele.
And as soon as I started smashing something up, Keith, who's a great sort of joiner in there, used to smash up his drum kit. It's hard to explain. It's everything that I was this guitar. And as I told you earlier, it's what it's how I became a man, was through the guitar. And it's great still to this day to smash them up and just say, oh, wood, garbage. You know, I'm what counts. And, you know, I've got through some great instruments, I'm afraid. Very sorry. But, you know, a lot of trash too, so.
There's a lot of talk in the 60s, and The Who was always included in this, about revolution, it being a revolutionary period. Great claims have been made for rock music, haven't they, that they have sort of helped and inspired and lubricated a change of feeling, changes of attitude towards the way society conducts itself, and so on and so forth. Do you think these claims are justified?
Music is a spiritual medium, there's no doubt about it. It's an elevator of the spirit. I mean, you listen to certain pieces of classical music in order to get a specific high. I mean, it's like almost like a meditative process. You listen to the Alleluia chorus to become spiritually elevated. You know, I mean, there are rock songs that do that to me. They elevate me as much, if not more, these little three-chord wonders. You know, and I mean, this is something which, when you're subjected to a lot of music over a long, long period, you see a lot of performances. You become part of an industry which is self-sufficient and a proud industry in a way, which makes a lot of money, in other words, and can hold its own in terms of being a separate society, and is supported by the people, like football is supported by the people. You start to realise in a way that what you're doing is holding water, because what turns you on, what elevates you, also elevates them. So you become like a barometer. It's really... I know this is putting it in terms of music, and perhaps it's a bit preposterous because rock has got a whole lot of other things going for it, and I know that's what you're prodding at. But taken from a musical point, that's really a lot of what it's all about. Great events like Woodstock, for example, are musical events.
That's very odd. I was going to go to Woodstock because that was the end.
I took my 6-month-old child, and very, very, very weird. Didn't like it at all. They dumped us out of a limousine into 6 foot of mud, and we stood there for 5 hours waiting to go on. Drank a cup of coffee. 5 minutes later, I'm on an LSD trip, unwillingly.
They'd put LSD in the coffee?
Yeah, LSD in the coffee, LSD in the mud. If you fell over and accidentally drugged some muddy water, you're on a trip. I mean, I'm not a great champion, I'm afraid, of the revolution anymore. And I'm harsh critic because of the fact...
How did you actually start writing songs in the first place? I mean, how did you write your first song?
Well, I never... I mucked about a bit writing stuff when we were doing the pub circuit before we ever recorded. But as I said, Pete Meaden, who was our publicity man, wrote our first record. And when that failed miserably, sold about 3 copies. I'm the Face, that was worth about £1,000 a copy now. We went for our next recording audition at Abbey Road, where the Beatles recorded, and they said, well, we think you're a great band, a great R&B band, but the Beatles have set a trend of groups writing their own material. All the Liverpudlian groups write their own material. The Stones write their own material. You've just really got to do it. So away we walked, and everybody looked round, and who's going to write? And me being at art school and being able to say long words like perspicacity, which I heard on a Spike Milligan album, was elected to do the job. And about 8-10 weeks later, the song that I'd written, Can't Explain, was number 8 in the charts. So, you know, it all seemed very automatic and easy to me.
And did Tommy seem easy? I mean, that's because that is
It was,
quite
it
long
was pretty difficult.
and arduous. How long did it take you to write that?
Oh, long time.
This followed a rather hectic time with drugs, which you renounced, like renouncing the devil and all his works. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the evil past I had, yeah. The evil vengeance, because I had a born with a big nose, you see. I thought, the drugs period of my life was, as I told you, it was very obsessive when I was at art school. My introduction to marijuana, which is a very insidious drug, coincided with my introduction to rhythm and blues music. Great music, and insidious drug. And the two became almost interlocked. The hearing of music and the kind of smoky, gentle psychedelic thing that went along with drugs. Yeah. And from there, I went the whole gamut. I ended up at a very famous festival, Monterey Pop Festival, which was littered with. I mean, that, I suppose in a way, if any example of the drug culture has ever been, it's been Monterey, where the police were surprised because all these horrible, dirty hippies behaved so peacefully. It was because a lot of them were using drugs of, you know, a hallucinogenic type, which were making the world a peaceful, beautiful place. Well, if they weren't taking LSD, which wasn't that common, they were using pot, which is a mild hallucinogenic. And on the plane, on the way back, I looked through my pockets and I found a pill which somebody had given me, which was called STP, a very powerful hallucinogenic, much more powerful than acid. It's supposed to be 20 times more powerful, which Keith Moon produced a similar one and said, let's while away the hours with a trip. See? So I thought, well, I can't leave him to, you know, go off on his own. I mean, it's probably nonsense to your average viewer, because they don't realise exactly what a trip is. It really is a terrifying journey, if it can be wonderful, but it can also be terrifying. And so I felt that I should accompany him on this journey and knock mine back. And about 15 minutes later was a frothing at the mouth. Blech. I was having visions of the most unbelievable nature. Now remember, I'd had LSD before many times, and I'd had bad trips on LSD many times, but nothing like this. It was, at one point, I was so disgusted with what I was and what I was thinking and my body and the way I felt that I actually left my body. And in Quadrophenia, there's a bit in the little story that I write in the cover, how the kid leaves his body and looks at himself sitting in the railway carriage. That happened to me on this aeroplane. We were up in the sky, and I was looking down at myself in the seat. And then in the end I realised I must go back, otherwise I was going to die.
One of the things about quadrophenia is that it's instead of schizophrenia, it's 4 minds instead of 2 minds, but the 4 minds are the 4 minds of the group.
Jimmy is the hero. Jimmy is the hero of the thing. He is an average kid, but he's made up of 4 sort of archetypal, extreme personality types, and one is reflected as a reflection of Roger's personality, which is tough and assertive, and the other is Keith Moon's personality type, which is devil may care, I'll take anything, I'll, you know, eat anything, I'll jump off Tower Bridge sort of thing, who cares. The other is John Entwistle, this aspect, who is a great secret romantic. And I thought it would be nice to let the world know what a romantic he was. He's the romantic side, the Hollywood type, dream-laden type thing that, you know, that there is a girl somewhere, the perfect girl, the perfect life, you know, the perfect sitting room where the television is good all day long and, you know, no pollution and stuff. And the other side, it was my side, which is the mystical, frustrated seeker, I suppose, a spiritual sort of spiritually desperate was the way I described it. And those are the four facets we've all shared in the group, and maybe this is one of the magic things that holds us all together, is that we've all shared the experience, a simultaneous experience of forgetting who we are at a rock concert, losing ourselves in you know, sort of completely sort of egoless, you know, I suppose it's almost like a meditative experience. When the music gets so good and the audience are so relaxed and free and happy, because the music isn't just good music, it's also dance music and makes you want to dance, that everybody for a second forgets completely who they are and where they are, and they don't care. They just know that they're happy and that now is now and that life is great, and what does it matter if they're a big star, and you forget that you're supposedly a big star. You just know you're playing the guitar and for a moment you're happy, you're one of the audience or one of a crowd of people. It's rock and roll. Things become, when I suppose people start to feel and maybe talk about rock and roll in a religious sense, because it does have this meditative, if you experience that enough times, it starts to become something that you strive for, because it's so sweet. There's definitely some magic that happens at a Who performance, and at any great rock performance, I think, any good, solid rock performance. I enjoyed playing Charlton very much.
Why did you decide to play at Charlton Athletic?
It was the idea of a guy, Pete Allen. He was involved in a company called Greasy Truckers that did underground promotions. And he wanted to do a big summer festival and was talking to us about it, and suggested Charlton because it was in a natural valley. And we looked at it more closely, and 2 years later it actually came together.
Turned up not very long before the concert itself. You don't like to hang around?
No, don't like getting there early, don't like rehearsing. Just like going on, sizing it up quickly and playing. It's always the best way.
But when you're going up along, it must be like going out to play a cup final, isn't it? Something 80,000 people out there and you're walking along the tunnel. Is it intimidating, or do you just want to... Are you glad they're there? Are you worried about
Charlton
them?
was very...
When a young man, he ain't got nothing in the world these days. Said a young man, he ain't got nothing in the world these days. Well, you know, in the old days, when a young man was a strong man, everybody, they stepped back when a young man walked by. But you know, nowadays, it's the old man. He's got all the money. And a young man, he ain't got nothing in the world these days. ain't got nothing in the world these days. I said, young man, he ain't got nothing in the world these days. Well, you know, in the old days, when a young man was a strong man, all the people, they step back when the young man walked by. But you know, nowadays, it's the old man, he's got all the money. And the young man, he ain't got nothing in the world these days. Here's a song off of an old album of ours called Who's Next? Here's a selection of our last album. Or what's left of our last album on stage. Anyway, here's a favourite of ours. There's a number called Drowned.
It's some problem with the guitar. I'll get it together.
At last. Mr. Keith Moon. Number called
Ooh.